Cognate. Yep.
Yeah, that's what mine says.
Well, golly, then I totally messed that up. Good job. That's why it's a low rent biddle.
Hey,
Low
you're
rent.
Good
allowed
job.
to have problems in the beginning.
Well,
10 out of 10. Great practice.
Yes,
So
you're
so
allowed
here's
to
what
have boo-boos in
here's
the beginning.
so here's the mistake that I made. That's so we can record it. This is what I did wrong. So I have a the way I understood the way it worked last time was when I hit start streaming.
It's working.
Yep, when it
It
starts
is.
streaming.
I'm hearing note twice.
So am I. It's working.
Yeah. When
I had to
when I hit
turn it
start
off.
streaming last time on my machine that actually handles all that, it automatically went live. It automatically went live. This time it didn't. So I have to keep an eye on what it's doing apparently. So there you go.
Hey, it's working.
Now you know knowing how to battle. So let me go ahead and actually redo the intro thing here. So I want to say, because I want that on the audio. So I'm going to say welcome to the Cubicle chat, where we are here to set out to have a talk about tech around the virtual water cooler. Anything that is Linux, tech, and open source related is on the table for discussion. We do have some things on the docket, but first, I want to thank Rocco for starting the BDLL Community, where I truly felt a member of the nicest group of encouraging and uplifting people of phenomenal skills and abilities at a whole range of levels. I'm at the lower end of the level, and I'm good with that. As we can see by the evidence of tonight's stream, that I already kind of biffed it. How do we put that? But anyway, so I'm gonna go around the horn and see what people are doing. Since so Thomas, I haven't talked to you in probably 6 months. What are you up to?
That's a great question. So,
Wait,
mostly,
hold on. Any low latency kernels? We have any low latency kernels that you've been?
Yes, yes. I
Excellent.
switched low latency kernels. This one has much better performance.
Okay.
But yes. So what am I doing lately? Not doing school right now, because I just don't learn well online. Ironically, right? Once school shut down, I just kind of noped out, and I currently work at a Radio Shack, and I sell phones.
A Radio Shack?
Let me explain, okay? It's
Yes.
not corporate Radio Shack, okay? Corporate Radio Shack has gone under and has been under for years. This was a franchise. The franchises are still around. So you'll see them like dotted here and there. There's actually 2 in this county, and they're owned by the same guy. So I jump back and forth between the 2. But yeah, I work at a Radio Shack, and it's similar to the way Radio Shack used to be. But there's also like a phone store in there, and I sell phones. So I'm actually doing tech now. So I'm doing what I love, and I'm enjoying every second of it. Other than that, lots of programming, lots of playing video games, because what else am I going to do with my new free time?
That's true. So now, before we move on any further, I got to know, how do you have like supplies like resistors and transistors and all these things at that Radio Shack? You have like all the fun stuff that made Radio Shack awesome, or do you have like Mick Radio Shack that it kind of became in the late 90s?
I have the resistors, transistors, capacitors, everything, all of that.
Nice.
I've actually been meaning to buy them out of all of their little bitty buttons, because I have a project planned where I'm going to take an Arduino and make a slide out keyboard for my phone using said Arduino, and I just don't have enough buttons to buy from them yet, because I need a lot of buttons. But yes, we have all the fun stuff too.
That's very awesome. Well, Barbara, I'm curious to know what you've been up to. Have you been doing any? Are you still on Ubuntu Mate as your regular ride?
2 laptops are running Ubuntu Mate, and the other 2, this one, which is a System 76, and a used System 76 that I got earlier. Those 2 are running Pop OS, if you can believe it.
I believe it.
I like it. It's scary, but I like it. There's some things that I still much prefer Mate. So for System 76, it's really optimized for their equipment, for their machines. So I left the Pop OS on it. Until about 2 weeks ago, as I was saying earlier, the biggest thing I did was walk out, get in the car, and go to the grocery store, and come home and go to Target, which is really boring. But I am totally vaccinated, 100% vaccinated. Got my two Pfizer shots, and so I've actually started to sub again. And
Oh,
I
nice.
sub in one of the in the one district that's all the alternative schools. And there's only one school, one building, out of the three of them that I would sub in because they're the only ones really sticking with the COVID-19 safety protocols. Like the kids leave the room and you have to clean basically the whole place before the next batch come in. And so I've subbed actually 4 times. So like 2 days last week, 2 days 2 weeks ago, and then 2 days this past week. And it was just so nice just to get out and be around people, even if they are teenagers.
Right. Well, I just want to say, for the record, we should have been sanitizing the classrooms every day anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But yeah, no, they're really, I've got to say that they do a really, really good job. And this one school is really, they are actually right on top of it because the other two buildings have had breakouts of, COVID, and who wants that? But this particular, here everyone's really, really good, and so I've been enjoying it. And you
That's
only
excellent.
get like 2 kids in the class because everybody else is like online, is remote. So it's really kind of weird, and sometimes nobody shows.
So how do you do that? Do you have like a screen sitting on everyone's desk and that represents them, or how do you?
Well, the kids, well, the way it's set up is the kids who are in school, they're in the classroom and the teacher's there. The teacher has uses Zoom, has it up on the big, huge flat screen TV,
Yeah.
and she has a camera that points to the other kids in the class. The kids in the classroom can see the ones who are from zooming from home,
Okay.
so they get the same feel. But not exactly the same. I
Right.
think a lot of kids are falling through the cracks.
I was in a class last semester where there was literally one person that was remote, and he was just up there on the projector like the Wizard of Oz or something.
Man behind the
That's
curtain.
just weird.
It is.
And the kids, what happens is there are some kids who've been coming every single day because their parents insisted on it. And they're still staying within the no more than 25% of a class can be filled at a time. But and they know, and the kids themselves know that they don't do well from home. Whether it's they don't have the discipline. Well, teaching's a funny thing, and I agree with Thomas. If I had been in his shoes, I probably would not have finished the semester out because I don't do well from home. I do not do online stuff very well. I think of ADHD enough that I just zone out and wouldn't listen. And I like that direct in-person interaction. And that's what a lot of the kids are complaining about. What they want is that interaction.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
they've lost a lot of kids. They're not even bothering anymore.
Yeah, that does concern me. Hopefully we can fix all that. Like
Yeah, and
sooner rather than
what's
later.
going to happen? We're going to have a generation of kids. They're going to go through the system, and they're going to have a big hole in their education, especially for elementary and middle school, where they miss that year of school. And
Yeah.
and those kids, and that's what the problem is. There are a lot of holes in there, more so than ever before.
Right.
And when you're dealing with kids who are considered at risk and they already have deficiencies in their education for one reason or another, they really are going to suffer.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, my
So
kids
I
are
think
home.
for the fall we will be back 100% in school.
Yeah, I hope so. My kids are home educated, so they didn't really get a break. They just had more of me. So, I mean, I kind of feel bad for them. What can you do?
Well, it
So
is
Vash.
what it is.
Yeah, it is. So Vash, what exciting Linuxy things have you been doing in the last week?
Linux not as much because this week was first week of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. So that was a busy evenings for me.
Yeah, that would be considered open source, I think. Open source discussion, I
Yes.
believe. Yeah.
Very open source. But no, today I had just found out about Fedora 34 beta having Pipewire, so I've actually been messing with that a little bit this evening.
Oh.
But I just haven't quite got it to the. I think there's probably a package or two that I need to install to really make it all kind of work. Based on my searches around, it seems like some people were really liking it, and others have just, said it's not quite there yet. Which, I mean, I don't quite expect it to be there yet, but I'm super interested to see how it ends up turning out and all that stuff. So I'll be having to keep playing with it at some point here.
Yeah, that's exciting. No, I see we got on the list of things to talk about today. So we're gonna beat you up a little bit more on your experience with Fedora 34. And I see Steve is here. Steve Mo West.
Yeah.
Mo West Steve, because you mow the west side of your house. Is that what that means?
Yeah, there's a long story behind it that maybe I should tell you guys sometime.
Sure.
But
I'm dropping batteries.
It
I don't
happens.
know. The most techie thing I did didn't relate to computers. I just fixed my clothes washer a few minutes ago with my preteen daughter. So
Nice.
that was exciting.
So what broke on it?
It's one of the cheaper line of Amanos.
Okay.
And
I
it
know
was
well.
banging around like crazy every time you would do a load, every time we go into the spin cycle. And I just thought, oh, it's because people aren't balancing the load, right? Well, then I went and did a load, and of course I'm sure I perfectly balanced it, and it still banged around like crazy. So then I looked online and found out that the suspension rods can wear out on those that hold the washer tub.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a $30 part to replace the 4 suspension rods. And I figured, $30 to quiet it back down again, that might be worth it. So my preteen daughter and I replaced the suspension rods in the clothes washer, and she's running a load right now. So I'll be excited to find out if it still bangs around.
So is this a high efficiency top loader, or is this the more the bath style with the big agitator in the center?
More of the bath style, big agitator in the center.
Okay.
I have the high efficiency one, and I love it.
I have a front loader. So the reason I say this, I know, I was actually going to ask if it was the clutch that broke in your washer. There's the weakest point of those washers is a basically it's, like the tire, like a steel belted radial tire. You take like a bunch of layers of that, you slam them together, and you put like these 8 prongs in it, and that's actually what drives. That's the kind of it's a fail point, so that if it were to jam up really hard, that's actually the part that would break, and then you just replace that as opposed to a motor. Usually those go out eventually, but if that's the suspension rods, that's I've never actually done that, changing suspension rods. Usually they die before that happens, so you must have a good one.
It's 7 years old, and the family was like, oh, why don't we just buy a new washer? And then I saw, well, wait a minute, it could just be the suspension rods, a $30 part. I would rather spend $30 and get a new clothes washer.
Right, then like $300 or $400.
Yeah, because they're expensive. I had to get one this past year. They are expensive.
So I'll be real interested to find out if that load is nice and quiet again.
Well, if we hear some banging
You'll
around,
know soon enough.
I have a matching Amana dryer, and I've taken that thing apart 3 times to fix that. The
belt?
roller.
okay.
No, the belt has been fine.
Oh.
The roller wheels wear out on those. The drum rotates on. There's 2 wheels in the back that the drum rotates on, and those wheels eventually start to wear down, and the rubber arm starts to come off. And when that happens, you hear a clunk, 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 clunk.
Yep.
And yep. So I replaced those twice because the first time I did not find the Whirlpool certified roller wheels. I found some other Chinese version, and they lasted about 2 months, and then clunk, 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 clunk again. But
there you go.
I found the Whirlpool ones. It's been nice and quiet for quite a few months now. So hopefully those last as the first set lasted 6 years. So if I get 6 years out of new roller wheels for $15, that's not bad either.
Yeah. It's cheaper than a new dryer.
Sure is. And I love it. We have a gas dryer. Oh, I love it. Gas dryers are just great. They really dry your clothes fast.
I have a gas dryer. It's from an old Duet set. The washer's since died, but this one's from 2006. And I haven't actually done any. Well, that's not. I did have to service it because somebody who worked on it prior, the duct, they took it apart, and so the duct was leaking lint inside the dryer. And a couple of years ago, it started on fire on me, but I caught it, so it didn't burn my dryer or the house down. But it did leave
That's
quite
good.
an odor for a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got to. So That's a warning. People should actually service their dryers, make sure their lint is completely out, make sure there's no lint in the bottom, especially a gas dryer, because if you look on the inside of a gas dryer, you basically have this torch that's just blasting hot air. So
I have seen the torch.
yeah, it's actually a pretty impressive torch. I mean, you could do awful things with that if you really put your mind to it. So
it really is an impressive torch, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is worth taking. Actually, I was surprised at how few parts are in those things. There's just not a lot to them.
It's just a metal box and a tumbler.
My dryer, I had to replace it along with my washer this past year, and I got just an updated version of the exact same dryer I had for 28 years, and there isn't really any difference except the dials look newer. And what can you do with a dryer? You know, when you think about it.
So
and no, I would not want the smart one. I like stupid appliances.
They're all stupid.
I am with you on that, Barb. I would like to. We should talk about this because I am not in favor of all of these IoT devices for appliances. No. I want my dumb appliances that have $30 repair parts that I can take apart myself. Our stove went. It was doing something crazy. The oven would. You turn the oven on. You know, let's say you want to bake something at 350. So you turn the oven on. You leave the room, you know, you think, oh, it's baking away. Okay, it's great. It's at 350. And then all of a sudden, it would go up to over 550 degrees. And it wouldn't like stop. It would just like keep heating up as, you know, and so you'd have to crawl under it and, or take the breaker, you know, knock the breaker out or get it unplugged. And it turns out that the circuit board, because all of the new stoves now have this giant circuit board. It looks just like a computer board sitting in there, and that's what controls all the oven functions. And I long for the days of no circuit boards in my appliances, because that one circuit board was going to cost me, I think it was $750 for the part.
Very expensive.
Thankfully, I was able to find one that was like used and cheap, and it works still. And so I was able to change it out. But man, I want my dumb appliances. So I really don't want to replace my washer and dryer because they're both dumb and mechanical switches.
Oh, mine are dumb. My washer and dryer are dumb. And even though I've got one of those high efficiency ones, which are really kind of cool to watch as the drum goes up and down, but I can't connect it to Wi-Fi. I can tell when it's over. It beeps. What do I need to have it on my phone? It says your laundry is done. Really?
So
it's so stupid. No offense to those people who want their
IoT. It does make sense in a
IoT.
university environment where you have to share it with like a building of
Right.
100 other people.
Share it with anyone, you know. So yeah, I can see it there, but not for the average person. I don't think they need it. I don't need to have it where I can put the clothes in early and then leave the house and then have it start up. No, I put the clothes in, start them up when I'm home. I mean, I don't understand. It's like I also would not want to have a completely wired house with Wi-Fi connected things like door locks, smart lights and door locks.
Yeah, the door locks are dumb because usually the locks are just not good locks either. You can just take a magnet and they don't work anymore.
Yeah. Well, not only that, I mean,
So
nice.
I actually have
I don't like. It's not as secure. I don't care what they say. I might sound paranoid, but that's just me.
No, you're right.
I actually have smart lights, and they are the nicest thing ever because like I can be on my way home, and I can just like hit the little microphone icon on my phone and be like, turn on the lights. And as soon as I get home, or even before that, the lights are on. So I'm coming into a house that's already lit. I don't have to worry about somebody who's broken into my house from the back door and I don't know, and they're lurking in the shadows waiting to kill me. So
Get a dog.
Actually, I can't.
I don't worry about that.
That is not an option for me. That is not an option for me because my mother is allergic.
Oh.
Oh.
And I live in an apartment complex, so we had to get the okay from the apartment manager. He's normally okay with it. There are multiple other tenants that have cats, but a dog.
Cats
But-
don't really let you know that there's anybody there unless the fact
Yeah.
that all
Yeah,
of a
the
sudden
cat
they've all
might be in
disappeared.
league, or for all you know.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it's also cool because, like, so the lights directly above me are actually RGB lights. Most of the other lights are just plain white, brightness changing.
Mhm.
These are RGB. So whenever I go to play Doom, I can just tell Google, turn the lights red. Hey, Google, make the office red. Give it a second.
gotta think
Google,
about it.
you idiot.
I don't want Google.
Hang on. We can do this the easy way. Make the office red.
Sure. Changing 2 lights to red.
And now I can play Doom in full immersion. It's so great. I love it so much. Well, like I even have I have a Google, what's the word I'm wanting? I have a Google like routine set up where so I can basically make a Doom reference to Google, and it will turn off all the lights behind me. It'll turn these lights on and make them red. And I've debated on having it play one of the Doom songs. That way I can just like get in the mood for killing demons. Because like who doesn't love Doom at some point in their life? Whether you played it on like whatever it came out on initially, or a TI-84, or a 2080 like I have now, you gotta love Doom.
It's
Right?
true. It's true.
All right,
So-
I'm gonna
I
make
don't
my
know. I
lights
guess I'm
white
just
again.
going to remain as an old fart and say I do not want a smart house.
Yeah. So Daniel, right? Did I mess
Yeah.
that up? Okay,
No,
good.
you didn't.
All right.
I know
I've
I've
been
been.
I've been hitting the head several
Oh.
times in my life, so I don't necessarily remember everything quite right. I haven't talked to you in it seems like forever. I mean, in
Yeah, I
IT
know.
world,
I
in IT
kinda
world, it's been
stopped
at least
showing up.
like a release or so. So what's new in your world?
Well, I've been venturing into BSD land
Ooh.
more and more. Yeah, and a couple of weeks ago, I got a server. It's just like a literal rack server that is now sitting on my desk because I don't got a rack in this room. Right? And it's now running FreeBSD, and it has a couple of services on it, and it will eventually have more services on it. And yeah, so that has been a lot of fun, especially after I figure out how to make it quieter. Because when I opened it up, um, the fans were just set on full blast all the time, and it took me like a week or something to find the button that would turn them down to like only spin up like when it's under load. I don't know why it
You
took
didn't
so
want
long.
like a jet in your room? That's just,
I actually didn't mind. It just made it difficult. I couldn't take calls in my room or anything. Like I slept to it fine.
It's probably
I'm
nice
the
to sleep
guy
to.
that will occasionally sleep to heavy metal, so
Well, it's like
yeah.
it may not be considered white noise. Maybe some other kind of noise, like pink noise, might be. I think it might be what it
Maybe.
produces. Yeah.
It's actually going right now, but it's quiet enough that the mic doesn't pick it up.
Yeah, I don't hear it at all.
I don't hear anything.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I'm really glad
Hey,
you're all here.
Daniel, have you?
Go ahead.
Uh-huh.
I was curious if Daniel is exploring jails at all with his free BSD.
Yes, I love jails. Everything is in jails. I bought the book too. Well, multiple free BSD books, but the jails book by Michael W. Lucas. They're fantastic. Anyway,
So
for those that
how does jail differentiate from like AppArmor and SE Linux?
Docker, actually.
It's not like that. Yeah, it's more like it's closer to like like Docker or Lexi or something.
okay.
It's a lightweight virtualization thing. So like it uses the host's kernel, but it is its own FreeBSD userland. Or you can even do a Linux userland. It's a little Frankenstein, and some things might not work, but you could do it. So like I basically It just has its own process tree and its own directory that it thinks is the root directory and that kind of thing. And it's very integrated with EOS. You can do a lot of cool stuff with them. One of the reasons I prefer them over Docker is because I was fed up of getting Docker containers that just had made decisions that I would not have made, like we just were dumb or we're dead on arrival or something like that. I'm like, I'm just gonna do it all myself.
That's very cool. So I
Yeah.
just displayed my ignorance about what jails were, and I feel good about it. That's fun.
You
There
weren't
is a
alone.
mandatory access control system in FreeBSD, but I think that's literally just called the mandatory access control system because there's only one.
Right. Well, it's very cool. I appreciate you all being here. It's kind of fun. I've missed the BDLL talks, whether it's about software or distributions or whatever. It's fun to kind of nerd out a little bit with people.
Especially when you don't have anyone else that you can talk to about it. Like
Right.
where I live, I'm in the Linux dead zone.
Yeah. Well, when I start
My
talking to
family
somebody about
tolerates it.
your family tolerates it. I have a nephew who loves Linux, so I got him a Raspberry Pi for his birthday to play with.
Oh, cool.
So he's doing neat
Took
things.
them early.
He might have burnt out one of the GPIOs on it. I don't know yet. Not for sure. He says it's acting funny. It's okay. It's just a Pi. But
I have discovered that while there is no Linux community in my area, there is a small 3D printing community. So I've been getting involved in that because you can kind of see it right there. I was given a 3D printer
Awesome.
by a friend of mine.
Actually, so was my brother.
Cool.
Yeah, these things are cool. It has a learning curve. Like take the learning curve you have coming from like Windows or Mac OS into Linux, and like multiply it because you're dealing with hardware, and then multiply it again when you have to use Linux and open source software to run that thing. Because it's not easy, but once you figure out how to do it and you start learning CAD and figuring out how that works, it is really cool and you can do some really cool stuff.
What are you doing for CAD?
So what have you made?
Got 2 questions to answer.
Okay. So what have I made in CAD? So my mic is actually sitting on a new mic stand. My old one I didn't like very much because there's a little hole in the bottom that the mic's supposed to sit on. If you actually look at Nate's mic, it looks very, very similar. The little ring at the very top. Yes, and I think I actually had the exact same mic. That little ring right there. I have a stand that was supposed to sit down in the hole, and the hole was too small for that little ring in the top. So it was like sitting on top of it and would fall over really, really easily. And I was constantly terrified that I'd bump the table and knock the mic over and give everyone ear rape. So
well then,
my
ear thanks you. My ear thanks you then.
Yeah. Because like the keyboard fiasco was enough, but that. So I designed my own mic stand so that it would like sit in there securely, and it even has like a little back plate to it to reflect the sound of my voice back into the mic, so I'm a little bit amplified. And actually, if I mute myself real quick, I can show it to you. So give me 1 sec.
Oh, that is cool.
Oh, that is cool.
That is
Yeah, I think
very
that
cool.
is. I think that is the same mic. It's a Fifine or Fifine, or I'm not sure how to call what it's called.
Yes, fine.
Fifine.
Yeah.
Very good
One of the
emphasis.
other BDLL people actually sent it to me, and yeah, it was fantastic. It was a great upgrade for me.
See, the BDLL community is just great, is it not?
It is.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you want one of those mics, they're like $25 on Amazon. Go pick you up one. LTT actually did a review of it. It was pretty cool. It was all of like 5 minutes, but what else have I made with it? Oh, so I mentioned earlier that I'm an Eagle Scout, and I still work with one of the troops I was involved with, and so I made it. The reason it's in 3 different colors is because I ran out of the black mid-print.
Oh.
So the white was actually the filament it came with. So I just used up the rest of it. And then I did the remainder in the red. And
Very
one of my
cool.
buddies, who also does 3D printing and is also an Eagle Scout, I'm going to clean it up a little bit, and he's going to paint it to make it look realistic. And then I also made, if my small arms can reach, Mr. Thinker.
Oh, very nice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
low poly,
so it looks
yeah.
kind of techno.
Yeah, I like it.
And then
It's a neat look.
right now, my big 3D printing project is so I have a good friend who is a special needs kid. He has a physical disability, and he is a huge Star Wars fan. And I told him about how I got a 3D printer recently. So if he ever wants me to make something, just shoot me an email with the file or whatever. And his mother hit me up and asked if I would make a stormtrooper costume for him. So I have been piece by piece 3D printing a stormtrooper costume, and it has been insane and a huge pain, but I know the grin on his face when he sees it and tries it on is going to be amazing. I'm just having to do it piece by piece because my 3D printer isn't big enough to print the whole thing at one time. But
See, what you should do
yeah.
is you should actually 3D print the base of it, and then do some vacuum thermal forming with high impact polystyrene. That's how they make the insides of refrigerators. Something like that. I'm kidding. That's a lot of. That's really expensive.
I mean, it sounds like a cool idea. I just don't know how to do it. But yeah, I'm making some other
It'd be
stuff.
kind of hard to do in an apartment anyway.
Yeah. I taught my work into actually stocking it. So we are now selling 3D printing filament.
Nice.
So if I ever need it, then I can just go to work and be like, yo, guys, I'm going to buy some 3D printing filament, and I get it for the discount. So why not?
Wait, is that insider trading? Is that what that is? Is that insider? That's got to be something, right?
I mean, we're actually selling it to the customers too, so,
I'm kidding.
It's just it's convenient for me. It's convenient for other people. Why not?
So what CAD program are you using?
That's a good question. What CAD program?
So when I first learned how to do CAD, I hadn't switched to Linux yet. So when I started, I was using Autodesk. I hadn't touched it for years. And by the time I got this thing, of course, I'm way into Linux, never going back to Windows ever again. And I'm not dual booting. No way. And I need the GPU throughput to render stuff. So throwing that into a Windows VM isn't really an option. The only CAD software I knew of on Linux was FreeCAD. So I'm using that. It's less than ideal, but once you get the hang of it, it does the job that I need. It's, like I said, not perfect, but if you're doing anything basic or you know how to Google, it'll work.
So if I may recommend, FreeCAD is getting a lot better, especially if you're doing more complex assemblies. Also, Fusion 360, generally speaking, installs into Linux like using Lutris. Yannick, I don't know if you know who Yannick is. He's Other Side Podcast Network. He's the French guy from Switzerland. Anyway, he has a script also that works quite well for installing the Fusion 360, and that's a little more of a commercial package, but it's free. You just have to basically ask. You have to request a personal use license, and it doesn't cost anything. Yep. But it's like $500 a year if you're doing it commercially. So if you're basically the idea is if you're going to make money off of it, they want their cut. That's kind of how that works. I wish
fair.
I wish they would support Linux directly, but they're not. It's so close. They really could.
And at least they're not voiding your license if you are running it on Linux.
Nope,
that
I don't care.
That's good. So
I did manage to get it installed. Paying for me through Lutris at least. I don't know about Yannick's script, but the only other thing that I would say that my kind of biggest issue with it, I guess, is that from as far as I can tell, I can't increase the scale of the UI components for wine stuff. So it's a bit of a pain to try to use at times, just compared to everything else on my machine, size-wise.
As far as like processing power, is that what you're saying? Like we had a hard time pushing it, or just
No,
the
like the UI will
Oh.
not scale.
Oh, okay. I don't think it scales in the Windows version either. Like on Windows, I don't think that's a thing. I could be wrong. But well, that's very cool. So, Vash, since you brought it up, Fedora 34 beta. You said you were playing with Pipewire on that.
I've been trying to mess with it. I was trying to get some of the Cadence stuff downloaded, or the KX Studio stuff downloaded, but it's like a 1 gig file download, and it's from SourceForge, so it's taken forever. So I haven't quite gotten there yet. But I mean, so far the audio seems to work fine over there. It's really, and it's apparently just all Pipewire at this point. Like there is no, you don't have to go install extra packages or anything like that, as far as I understand. I'm trying to look for more information on that though, because it's just not super confirmed on that. So it's just so new that I don't see a lot of people just talking about it yet.
So do you see like there's some modules that like call for pulse audio? So do those modules then work with Pipewire just the same, or does everything have to be rebuilt?
No, as far as I can tell, Pipewire is just a drop-in replacement for Pulse and for Jack and for ALSA, for all of that.
Wow, that's pretty exciting.
I don't think it's quite there yet, but it sounds like it's getting closer and closer for the audio side.
That's really excellent. Yeah, 'cause I think the complaint with Pulse for a lot of people is the inability, if you do things like this, is the inability to actually specifically control each of the audio streams. I think it's the lack of resolution, I guess, in stream control. And the problem with Jack is the complexity for all the resolution you get for stream control. So, I don't know. I'd be interested in seeing how Pipewire actually fleshes out in the end.
Yeah, I'm very curious about just how it's actually going to work, and as if hopefully I'll get the chance to mess with it more this week and actually see if I can get it cooperating. It's a little weird because it is in a VM, so I've debated on just trying to do this in Manjaro, but you have to pull out all the pull stuff and all that. But I mean, it's really, if I rip out Pulse and I can just put it back. So maybe I'll end up trying that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah. I see also. I'm going to interrupt the video of everybody here, but see also the Butterfest transparent compression. Looks like they're taking some stuff from OpenSUSE there. Well, not taking. It's all open source, so they're just sharing. Yeah, I see that, replacing Pulse Audio with Pipewire. That's cool. Yeah, I'm really interested in seeing how this works out. Fedora tends to be the forward-leaning distribution, so it's nice to see them pushing this stuff, pushing the envelope, and hopefully those technologies then trickle down.
So what exactly is Pipewire? Is it like something like ALSA or Pulse Audio or something like that?
From what I'm reading,
purpose?
yes.
What is its purpose?
So
is a project that aims to greatly improve handling of audio and video under Linux.
yes,
That's from their website.
Ultimately, it's a replacement. It is designed to be a drop-in replacement for Jack, Pulse, and ALSA for the audio side. For the video side, it's supposed to be one of the things that's going to help you do things like screen capture on Wayland. I think there's some other aspect to it that
It does video as well as audio. That's a big thing.
Yeah, the big thing though it also does something with media. Like you can instead of GStreamer being your decoder or whatever, you can also do Pull or Pipewire eventually. I don't think it's quite as far on the video side. That's another piece to it too. So it's kind of all encompassing. It could become a very big thing here.
Okay, so it's basically just like if we go Wayland, it's probably going to be the future of how we do screen capture. And since
Yeah.
it has all those audio bits, it'll probably replace Pulse as well by the sound of it. Because, Pulse is still broken because Simon still hasn't fixed it. But
Never gets old.
What is Simon doing these days?
That is a good question.
last I heard from him, he was still working on Lubuntu. But I don't talk to him much anymore. I used to talk to him occasionally. But haven't heard much from him. I hear more from the XFCE guys these days because reasons.
Use XFCE, I'm guessing still, huh?
Yeah, I'm hoping I can get contributing here some because I use their stuff in my distro. I kind of feel bad by using it and not contributing back since I use it in such a heavy capacity, and since some other stuff I'm working on also heavily leverages it. But I want to contribute back. I'm not entirely sure how because I've tried doing stuff and it just can't figure out how everything works because the way the code is written is just tearing my brain to shreds.
What are you trying to do? Are you trying to work on panel plugins? I know that's something that my son's been doing for MX. He's actually been helping out with some bug fixing for some panel plugins.
So what I'm trying to do is, if you've ever run XFCE, I suggest trying to purge Thunar. And when you do, you're going to realize that the desktop icons all stop working. You can add them, and you can move them around, but the moment you try to delete them or open up a file or a document or make them or anything like that, it just throws errors out the wazoo. And the reason for that is XFCE desktop, like the actual thing that displays the icons, that hooks into dbus and it sends messages over that to Thunar, which has the back end to handle all that. So what I was trying to do was write a fallback so that if Thunar isn't there, there's still something that it can use and not throw those errors. You still have a working desktop. You can still have icons. And I could not figure out how to really add that in. I know there's a way to do it. It's just the way the C code is written, it just rips my brain to shreds. So what I've done instead is I wrote a Python package that you can have any file manager, and then you just install this Python package, and it pretends to be Thunar, and as far as dbus is concerned, and it hooks into where Thunar does and provides everything that the XFCE's desktop, where the icons are, is expecting to be there. And it's working really well so far. I have some other guys helping me out. Of course, I'm still having issues because I have to write it from scratch. But so far as I can tell, so far, everything that needs to be there is there. It's just fixing minor bugs.
No, that sounds like a neat project. Actually, it's like XFCE is built on the old model. I know for a lot of the old window managers, in order to get icons on the desktop, you had to have oftentimes it was a file manager that was running, like Roxfiler would allow you to put icons on your desktop and other things like that. So that it's probably running off of that model.
Cinnamon actually still works that way too.
And I get that the way it was written at the time was probably the best way to do it. But these days we have things like XDG and XO, and there was another thing that handles trash that I can't remember the command for off the top of my head. And you don't need to do that dbus rigmarole anymore. You can just call these commands. And
you need a dbus perhaps for like a USB drive to show up on the desktop? Is that maybe one of the reasons why dbus is still being used?
No, I don't. And even if it is, the only thing that I can tell that it's doing as far as that's concerned is when you go to open up the USB drive and it pulls up the folder. But that's just, I'm just doing an EXA or XTG open call and providing the file path for that. So nothing fancy. It does all the mounting it in the background first. So I don't know why it really needs it. And like I said, I'm sure there's a way they can write in that fallback, or even preferably just make that fallback the primary way of doing things, and the Thunar way of doing things is a fallback. But
That's a really interesting project in that you're using Python. I know my son is writing all of his panel plugins in C++. He doesn't even touch C code. So there's a lot of ways to use other languages that you're maybe happier in XFCE.
mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
not
sounds
working on the kernel, at least.
Accurate.
That's very cool. Now, not to recircle back too much, but so Fedora Pipewire, you said Vash that it's just not quite ready. Did you notice any like hiccups with it, or like stuttering or something?
I haven't quite gotten to the point where I'm able to make that call. That's just what I was reading. Some
Okay.
people, from what I've seen, that there's still not a lot of chatter, but from what I'm seeing is some people have just been like, yeah, it's worked perfectly for me, and others have said it's not quite there, and that they'll have some flakiness or glitches or something like that. So
Gotcha.
it sounds like it's getting close though. So
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to install that. I'm gonna put the link to the torrent in the chat, so if anyone else is interested in checking out or getting that, they can grab that. So I'm not gonna do that now because I don't know how good my connection is. So so there's also some other FOSS news. VLC 4. Who uses VLC here? Just us two? Oh, three? Three? I can't see Vash's hand. I'm sure his is up.
MPV, sorry.
Oh, MPV? Use MPV? Okay.
Use both.
I
Use
use
what?
whatever's installed by default. I don't really care one way or the other.
On
I have
Android
to use
is
VLC
fantastic,
on my
by the
Mac.
way.
So I read this article. Apparently they're going to do some major changes to the user interface. It looks like it has quite a bit of modernization to it. I do like how it looks, and it works flawlessly on Wayland. So for those of us that are transitioning Wayland, I don't know if, is that an issue for anybody yet? Wayland? No? No?
Isn't
Nobody?
2104 Ubuntu 2104 going to have Wayland?
I don't
Or did
know.
I misread that?
Have they fixed Wayland with NVIDIA?
I don't
NVIDIA
know.
actually is going to do that or something? Like, as in, I think System 76 has been asking them for a long time to actually cooperate, with everyone else, and I think they finally said, fine, we'll do that.
Well, good.
I run MX on 2 of my 3 main machines, and so that's not Wayland. But I do have Wayland on Fedora 33, but I usually don't use it because there's been a bug with KMyMoney, which I use a lot, that it gets graphical glitches if you're running not on Xorg but on Wayland. So I've filed a bug report. There's supposedly a possible fix. I haven't tried to test it yet.
Well, it looks like also VLC, they have VR and 3D support. They have the media player will sort albums and artists and genres and tracks and everything. It looks like it's finally going to be the iTunes that from like the mid 2000s as far as like the catch-all can do everything. I think that's good. I have been using it as my podcatcher, believe it or not, because it's the only thing that seems to be stable enough that I can actually accelerate the playback speed on for desktop. So I don't know, maybe it'll be better. I mean, I'm all for a better user experience with VLC. It always seems to do all the videos. I've never had VLC like not be able to do something. I think that's why I like VLC.
Well, that's why I use it on my Mac, because not everything will run through iTunes or QuickTime. So I have VLC on there, and it does really well.
I also I've used
But
Dragon
on
Player.
here, I have whatever it is.
Yeah, I've used Dragon Player like on Plasma. It's okay. But I know I'm interested in seeing when VLC 4 comes out. I'll definitely be interested in playing with that. So, didn't know if anybody else had any other thoughts on media players, perhaps. What they like.
As long as it's not Rhythm Box, it's my only thing.
I hate that.
Let's get him Winamp.
I hate
Winamp, that's
Rhythm
right.
Box.
Not Rhythm Box is not the worst music player I've ever used. The one that comes, I forget what it's called, but the one that comes bundled with Windows 10, I think, is marginally worse.
Oh,
What,
wow,
you mean
that's
Windows
really
Media
bad.
Player?
No. They renamed it to like Groove Music or something. It's ridiculous. It has less functionality than Rhythm Box, and it has one of these, big plasticky modern UIs with no functionality
I
and
Yeah.
big buttons.
I
The Fisher
honestly
Price look?
love. Yeah, I honestly love Clementine, but I don't think it's been updated in a while. And
Try Strawberry.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
Strawberry. I use CMUS.
Oh, I like Strawberry, which is a fork of Clementine.
Yeah.
There was one that I
And it's
used
more
for the
updated.
longest. There was one that I used for the longest time when I started on Linux called Banshee, but
Yes.
it stopped getting developed, so I haven't used it in forever. I wish it would come back because I loved Banshee so much. It was
Well, I think
beautiful.
that's why they switched to why Ubuntu switched to Rhythm Box. For a while there was Banshee,
Yeah.
and then
Um,
probably when they stopped updating it, then they switched back to Rhythm Box.
Yeah. At this point, I just use Audacious, but because I use Spotify mostly actually, because that makes it easier to find music and sync it between all my devices. I just end up using that. If I can find a way to pull all my music out of Spotify and decrypt it, and just use that, then I would probably end up using Audacious more, but I don't.
I
So
mean, somebody hasn't
I think
created
there
a
are
music decryption.
things. There are things that will like pull your playlists out of Spotify, or maybe it was like it put the playlist into Spotify from your local music. I'd have
Yeah.
to look.
and like Spotify can already pick up on your local music if you tell it to, but that's not what I want because all my local music is trash because it's like
Well-
downloaded from YouTube.
And Spotify's listen to local music functionality is also trash.
I use Amarok for local
I
music.
mean,
Now, I think
I've tried that one.
Sleepy Eye Vince, he brings up a really good question. Is Real Player still a thing? Anybody install that still? No? Anybody?
I
I
haven't
think
seen
that
that in
I'm too
ages.
young for that. Don't know what that is.
Oh, Real Player. It was the competitor to whatever
Microsoft
Windows
had at
would
the time?
have.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what I used back in my Windows 98 days, was Real Player.
Yeah, I used that just as because it wasn't Microsoft, and I actually liked it better.
It was
Um,
better.
I don't want to say anything, but I think it still exists.
I hope it does.
Yeah,
I think
go to
Winamp
real.com.
still
Let's
exists,
see.
but not as like Winamp.
They're trying to make it look like I'm looking at Real Player right now, and they're trying to make it look like a copy of the current iTunes in a way, or the last generation of iTunes.
Do
I'll
they have
say
a
the
flat
last
pack or a
generation.
snap for it? That's the real question.
I have no idea. I haven't gotten that far.
Maybe we have to bring that back. Real
Yeah.
Player, yeah, there's Real Player for Linux.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's a little bit out of date. The release was June 10th, 2010, so maybe it doesn't play everything anymore.
Ah, it's only a decade old.
So back
So I
when,
guess the answer is no.
so back when Daniel was in diapers, is that what we're saying here?
Well, I was born in 2000.
Oh,
Now, Real
Wow.
Player was around then.
Yeah.
yep. And yeah, I do remember that the blocky thumbnail size video streams on dial-up. That was
Mhm.
That was fun. Back in the dial-up days. Also, probably before your time there, Daniel, huh? Never had a dial-up modem, did you?
No, because well, my mom apparently slightly before I was born had two phone lines in because she worked for EDS. They're big. They were a tech company back in the day. You know, and had to remote into work from home and also be on the phone at the same time so she could collaborate with folks. Um,
Nice.
but they by the time they moved into the house where we are now, well, one, our neighborhood got used as guinea pigs by Verizon for fiber when they were
Ooh.
first testing it out. So basically, everybody can have fiber if they want, which is pretty cool. And then also, if you kind of needed the bandwidth.
Yeah, that was quite
Yeah.
some time ago.
Sadly, I remember modems. They were a pain in the neck.
I like the sound they made. And actually, I was looking at the technology. I think we talked about this last week, I think. But the technology in modems was actually pretty phenomenal, really, when you think about it. Everything that went into how it negotiated the best speeds and the way they communicated back and forth so rapidly. I don't know. I think it was neat.
Go ahead.
I just think it was neat. It was such a neat technology.
They still use them on fax machines. Yes, people do fax, amazingly enough.
Yeah, I know.
They, st-
They also
they still use them on fax machines.
Yeah, that's typically the only organizations I know that still use fax machines are governmental or work with governmental organizations. So, for what it's worth.
I can also tell you that the furniture industry, some stores still use fax machines because reasons. Whatever.
Like paper.
My mom has, I guess, my mom has multiple clients, and they think that fax machines are the latest and greatest of modern technology. And you mention a smartphone to them, and they're like, "What is this?"
Do you know when fax machines and the whole idea of it came out was the beginning? It was right before World War II. I looked up the history one day.
Huh, I did not know that.
And before that was the when they would when the newspapers would send photos so that they could get them in a newspaper, and let's say if it was from overseas. Of course, it went along that same trunk line underneath the ocean that everything else did. But those were the beginnings of fax machines. Fax in the early days.
I think they called them
got rid of
facsimile
our fax.
machines. Called them facsimile at that time.
Yes.
I got rid
Oh,
of our
is that
fax
where it
machine.
came from?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what it
really.
means.
That makes sense.
Yes, it was called a facsimile machine.
Yep. Sorry,
Right.
Steve.
And reproduction was lousy.
Yeah.
And it used the funky, creepy feeling thermal paper. The early
Yeah, I did not
ones.
like those. Yeah.
Oh,
I
that
did
was
not like
gross.
touching that paper. And besides that, if you left it on your desk, after a couple of days, it started to darken.
I've
'Cause it
encountered
was light
such
sensitive.
paper.
But it's this creepy feeling. It's like fingers on a chalkboard type of feeling.
What is this?
The
I've
thermal
never
paper.
heard of
The
Fax
thermal
this.
paper was very weird.
It was very. Ask your mother, Thomas. I'm sure she knows.
I think I've maybe seen that. I think I know what you are talking about, but
It usually was on a roll.
maybe-
It was
Yeah.
and it would smell funny too, because it was a chemical coating on the paper, and God forbid it jammed.
I just
That's why it was
remember-
really great when they came out with quote plain paper fax machines.
And then the printers that would use the paper that was just an endless sheet.
Oh, the fanfold paper.
Yeah,
With the holes in the
Yep.
side.
and then Twain print drivers.
Oh, those are usually for scanners. I remember my first scanner was this huge flatbed HP scanner. And I think I was lucky if it did. It had 600 DPI. It took forever. Oh, and you had to have a SCSI card in your computer.
Well, that was the best technology at the time. The SCSI,
Yes.
SCSI. I always called it SCSI, but I guess I'm wrong.
Yeah, they call it SCSI. That's how I learned it. So
I have SCSI ports in my server, but they're serially attached SCSI, which is better, I think.
Yes.
I don't have any stuff for it. I have the port.
You should just start finding old equipment to just play with it now. Like see if you can find like an old I don't know, like drive array thing to plug into that.
Oh.
So
A
what's the
RAID card,
specs on
but
this
I'm
old
using
server?
ZFS.
Or
What was that, Moest?
What's the specs on this server that you keep talking about?
It has. I would have to pull up the spec sheet to find out exactly what the processor was, but it is a Xeon something, 2 of them, and it has 128 gig of RAM,
Wow.
and it has 4 by gigabyte NICs, right? And 4 drive bays.
He's dying over there. Thomas is dying. Look at
I
that.
actually
He's
found a
dying.
really good deal. It was by this reseller that I'd heard Alan Jude recommend called UnixSurplus.com. And I looked at their eBay store, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing for $400. And I looked around, I couldn't find anything in particular wrong with it. I'm like, so if Alan Jude buys for these people, they're probably good. And it has been. But yeah, and I have 2 4 terabyte NAS drives for data that are in there is ZFS mirror, and then 2 250 gigabyte SSDs. They have another ZFS mirror for all the jails and for the OS.
wow.
That sounds like fun.
It has
Fancy.
been.
And you don't have to worry about kernel modules for ZFS on BSD.
Nope, not at all.
That's good. So what do you think of BSD? What are your thoughts on it?
Oh, well, one of the things about BSD is that there's not just like one of them. Like, it's not the Berkeley software distribution anymore. That's unfortunate. That the name leads you to think that that's all the same thing. But they're like using FreeBSD is a very different experience than using OpenBSD. And in fact, there are no file systems that are compatible between the two, except for like FAT and like whatever the CD file system is. But so I say this to lead up to I primarily used FreeBSD, and I have like the ZFS is built in, got the jails. It has like I'm not a system D hater, but I haven't found anything really wrong with the the FreeBSD way of doing it either. They've got this /etc/rc.conf that you put options into instead of you can edit it directly, or there's a command you can use that will validate that will put it in and make sure that or make sure you don't have duplicate lines and stuff. Messing with the network interfaces, like I've gotten into using, because I have all these jails, basically virtual machines that are talking to each other. I've gotten into the virtual networking thing, and that is really cool. I'm sure Linux has something comparable, but I don't know how to use it. And yeah, it was not that difficult to learn. Oh yeah, and then this laptop also runs FreeBSD, and getting I was looking around for network managers to install on it, because that's something you usually have to do, and then there are a couple, but then most of it is like, oh yeah, well, getting your to a thing where you can use both the Ethernet port and the Wi-Fi and switch between them seamlessly, that's a whole lot easier to do manually than it is on Linux. It isn't a click of a button, but it isn't you could do it without a network manager. You could just use ifconfig and WP supplicant and all that stuff directly, and it's anyway. And the ports tree, I really like the ports tree, which is basically you have, if they have binary packages like any modern open source Unix, right? But they give you this giant they give you this directory with basically all of the third-party software, right? It's organized in little categories. And if you need to build it from source for your own options, they make that really easy to do, basically. So, you can do that with like Linux or something. But it's not as integrated as the port system is, where I can just like go, oh well, I need this option in my Firefox or whatever. I can just go, to the correct like user ports www Firefox and type make install clean, and it will give me a screen where I can select the options I want, and it can, compile it.
And so, what, 12 hours later you have a browser, or?
Actually, yeah, that's the downside. But Poutrier solves that. If you're building like a bunch of custom packages, which I'm not, but I want to try this thing out, so I'm doing it anyway. You can have your own, like, it's kind of like the OBS, I guess, except you just have your ports tree. You say, I want to build these packages, and it says, okay, chief, and it builds them for you. And it sets up, basically your own repo that you can hook all your machines into instead of the official FreeBSD ones. Anyway, in addition,
your own little mirror of whatever repository for your personal builds. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. I have not been very organized. I remember once creating a very organized list of all the things I liked about FreeBSD, but I don't know where it is right now. So, also their man pages are way better, hands down. The man pages that the GNU project writes suck, because they want you to use the info system instead, which is basically, no, you don't want to read the reference manual, you want to read a textbook. No, I don't. I know how it works. I just need to know what this option does. Or, if I do need to know how it works, the FreeBSD man pages are pretty good at that anyways. And if they're not, they have a very nice handbook as well. And I also bought this book. Michael W. Lucas is a great author for learning all sorts of like Unixy or networking stuff, not just BSD, but he does do a lot of that. Anyway.
Yeah, I've heard wonderful things about their handbook.
Yeah. So its biggest flaw is that sometimes it doesn't get updated, as quickly as things get updated. So for instance, there's a lot of advice in the section for setting up X11 that just doesn't apply anymore after FreeBSD 12. But it won't hurt you to put in those options. It's just you don't need to anymore. But no one has gone and removed it yet.
So it's like the Fedora documentation.
Yeah, basically. And they had, if you know what DocBook is, it's this sort of XML dialect for writing documentation, but it is like super verbose, right? And it's a huge pain, and they were using that until recently. Like they just switched, or they're in process of switching everything over to ASCII Doc, which is more or less Markdown. So.
Oh, that's interesting because Fedora used to use DocBook for all their documentation, and they switched to ASCII Doc a couple years ago.
Because ASCII Doc compiles into DocBook, which then compiles into all the stuff that DocBook does. Markdown is kind of its own thing, Like I think the original Markdown.hs compiles into HTML, but that's not what these projects want. They want all their, their styling and everything, right? And to be able to produce a PDF and, So ASCII Doc seems to be the popular answer right now.
So I'm curious to know.
Yeah, if you learn Markdown, ASCII Doc is not a big jump. It just gives you more features than what Markdown has.
Yeah.
So I'm curious.
What I find it with Markdown is which Markdown are you going to learn? You're going to learn the GitHub Markdown? You're going to learn the standard Markdown?
Yeah, it's.
And then the program, which Markdown do they support? Because they're all the Markdowns are a little bit different. Some include tables, some don't.
So
yeah, I'm looking for options to use for a Markdown like note-taking app at work. I think it may end up being Joplin, just because I don't know that I'm finding anything else that I really feel like I can trust enough to actually put information into it. I'm just not OneNote is fine for what I've been doing so far, but there are just so many times where I just need something quick that I need, and OneNote just doesn't have some of those options that I think Markdown would.
I've been using
One
TiddlyWiki
of the things
for.
that I've been doing a lot with is I've been using Markdown, and then I use Pandoc to convert it into printable PDFs if I need to print something.
Yeah.
And that works pretty well. But when it comes to documentation, I usually go to ASCII Doc and use that, and then convert that into HTML to view like on a web server on my intranet.
Have you used TiddlyWiki?
I have used TiddlyWiki. It's been years since I used it.
Yeah, I have the same TiddlyWiki file since 2012. I've still been using it.
You should get a prize for that.
No, it's not worth that. But there are things I really like about it, and things I find irritating about it. So, but for the most part, I would say, I still use it. It was great for managing projects, like complex projects, because you can have all these different tiddlers and link them together, and you can like pull them up, basically very easily because they're all interlinked, or you can actually do. I did some like some JavaScripting. I think that's what they use in there. So I'd based on the tags, I could pull it up, on a different series of tags, whatever I wanted, and it made for a really nice user experience. So, yeah, but I got turned on to that in 2012, and I pretty much have been using it since.
It's also nice because it's one file. You could throw it on a USB key and then have it
Right.
on any computer that you put the key in.
Yeah, I'm really looking for something more that I can search on, and it has to be, it has to work on Windows. I can't use something I wouldn't want to use something on my local network or anything. So I'm gonna have to keep looking. ASCII Doc it's an interesting thing, but it's not quite what I'm needing because I'm just needing something that I can search through everything. I found something in OneNote the other day where I had taken notes for a meeting back in 2016, and they started talking about it, and I was like, hang on. And I just pulled it up, and I'm like, so this is what was going on in that meeting. And they were like, how do you have that?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's one of the problems with some of these Markdown, like standard notes and simple note and all that. You can't search.
So you can in
let's say if you
TiddlyWiki.
have,
Yeah, TiddlyWiki would be a good
Yeah.
solution for what you're looking for, Vash, because you could run it on any OS.
I'll have to see. I'll have to look at it and see. Since it's a work machine, I'm hesitant on what I actually install on there.
Well, you wouldn't install anything. That's the other thing. TiddlyWiki is just a file that you open up in a web browser.
Right.
Ah, good point. So maybe that would be the way to go. And it would all be stored in HTML. You're right. I'll have to look at that.
And the search function in TiddlyWiki is probably one of the best too, because if I like, let's say I was working on a project that had to do with liners of a particular refrigerator. Just saying, then I could actually search for liner, and then I could filter it then also on what it's tagged. So if I knew the platform as well, I could bring that up. So there's all kinds of different ways you can filter and extract information out of it. It's really really quite nice. And yeah.
And Barb, you make a good point about depending on the Markdown thing, it's not searchable. It's one of the things that my son wrote up was a little web UI written in Python, and it would go to our server and it would look at the directory where we had all of our ASCII doc files.
mm-hmm.
And he actually included a search in that, so you could search for anything that was in any of those files, and it would pop up whichever the file name was, and then you click on it, and then he'd run the conversion in the background from ASCII doc into HTML, and it would pop up on the website, the internal website. So that was
and
that was pretty
searching
cool.
Searching is really necessary. If you have a file that has gotten rather big, you don't have to sit there and scroll through it to
That's
find
for
it.
sure.
Like I use simple notes and standard notes mostly, and I am still looking for something. And I will try the
Cherry Tree as well. Didn't you try Cherry Tree? I thought you tried
Yes.
Cherry Tree.
I've tried Cherry Tree. Problem is you can't get it to work on the Mac very well. I have to have something that will work with Linux and work with Mac.
One
That's
of
What
my
about
the
one thing.
ZimWiki?
I
of the
like ZimWiki, but
worst
it's only
decisions.
for Linux that I have found. ZimWiki
Oh.
actually I really like because you can link different files and everything. But
I thought that worked on all OSs.
well, it runs in Python. That much I do know. I tried to get it on my Mac by following the directions, and I have the current version of Python and everything, and had all the libraries, and it just didn't.
Yeah, it says you can just do brew install Zim for Mac OS.
But then it wasn't like that the last time I looked. Oh, that is good. I gotta check that out because I looked a couple months ago, maybe 3-4 months ago. Excuse me. And I'm gonna check that out because I like ZimWiki. I really do.
Can you spell that? Like, what is it? Zim? You said Zim or Zoom or what did you say?
Zim,
Zim,
ZIM.
ZIM.
ZimWiki.
Yeah.
It's all one word.
There was a period where I tried taking notes that were just markdown files that were all in a directory, and this was for school, and they were synced up to my school OneDrive, except I was using rclone for that, and I made a mistake when I set it up, and rclone wiped out a week's worth of my notes.
Oops.
Oh, that's bad.
Because I had local changes, and it pulled down stuff from on high before it pushed my local changes, and so that it just all gone forever.
See, if you use sync thing and something is deleted,
I do use sync thing. I like it.
Oh.
I'm investigating putting C file on my new server because I've heard that's better in certain ways, but sync thing
Cat's
is
pajamas.
nice.
Only Noah thinks that.
What?
I just said only Noah thinks C file is better than sync thing.
Okay.
I like sync thing.
I like it because it's
I prefer
serverless.
my Nextcloud.
Nextcloud, I've heard like Nextcloud. I've heard will just one, it has way more than I need it to do. And two, I've heard a lot of people talk about oh, I have a file that's 6 gigs or something. Nextcloud just noped. So I'm not too enthusiastic about that.
So I set up mine specifically so that it doesn't sync my local GitHub repositories or a couple CH roots that I happen to have in that directory for reasons. And the reason I did that is because you don't need to sync GitHub repositories, right? They're synced to GitHub. Why bother? I've also discovered that when you do that, it tends to screw up the Git folder. Whenever you make a change.
Yeah.
Whenever. And it doesn't matter if you're doing something on another computer that's asynchronous from the other computer, it's going to screw up what you're doing. So I just don't bother.
Another mistake I did make was putting a bunch of I found so there's a OneDrive CLI for Linux, and for what it's worth, it also does work on FreeBSD, which is why I've been using it primarily for OneDrive. I don't know if it's official or not. But that works way better than rclone. But I put a bunch of Git repositories for some computer science related things in there, and then it just takes forever to sync. It's way slower than just having them on some kind of public Git server thing. That being said, I do think backing up your local Git repos I think is important in case you have local changes that you haven't committed yet, because that has bitten me before.
I've learned that it's better to make small incremental changes.
Oh yeah, you should.
Commit those.
But in case.
Well, it's better to do that than to just it's better to do that and risk losing 5 to 10 minutes of work than it is to, work and you have 3 hours of work on a single feature or bug that you just haven't committed yet because it's not quite ready, and it gets synced up to your Nextcloud as a backup, and then it gets synced back down to another computer.
Syncing to Nextcloud is not what I was talking about with a backup. Sorry, I was talking about an archival thing Like you send
Right,
it,
so like
you
like
rsync it
time
somewhere,
shift.
or you tar snap or whatever.
Like time shift, basically.
I guess so. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, like I can get that too, because there have been multiple times I've been working on something, and then I go to another computer, and I don't have that work there, so I just
Oh
work
yeah,
on
that
something
happens to
else.
me all the time. I'm like, ugh, I was working on this on my other computer.
Yeah,
First world
or
problems.
what was the other one?
Mhm.
Oh, or you're working on something and then something happens to your Linux or whatever installation, and so you have to nuke and pave because you don't know how to fix it. And you don't have
Yeah.
the time to go fix it. So you just lose all your data, and you're like, well, oh well,
Why
it's
don't
2
you
minutes
just
of work.
copy? Why don't you just copy the stuff in your home? Why don't you just like rsync your home directory onto like an external hard drive and then rsync it back afterward?
All of this was before I had a separate a separate home partition.
Oh.
Nowadays, I'm meticulous about this. I have a separate drive as my home directory. Like this computer right here, I built a desktop, and I specifically set it up so that I have a RAID 10 set up. That way, even if a drive fails, I have backup. I have redundancy. It's not perfect, but it's there, and it's all a separate drive for my boot drive. So that way I can nuke and pave if I want to, and I still have all my data. And because it's Btrfs, as long as it's using a kernel that supports the Btrfs RAID support, which is probably in just about anything that I use, I don't know what would be old enough to have Btrfs support, but not Btrfs RAID support. So, but just about any Linux distro
Slackware,
will
maybe?
support it.
Well, just don't use
I
Slackware.
don't know. Is Slackware even still getting updated?
Oh yeah. Slackware 15 is on the way. It has been for a long
Okay.
time, but no, like Slackware 15, or Slackware 14.2, which is the current version. It comes with like kernel 4.19 or something, and you can there are all sorts of Slackware fans that have made repositories. You can get more up to date stuff, but that's not what you get in the box.
Mm-hmm. So it's
So
like
I've heard a guy talking about he added this third party repository so he could get Plasma 5 instead of KDE 4.
how is this still acceptable? How long have we had Plasma 5? At least 5 years?
Well, the
Something
users
like
don't
that?
care enough to just add this third party repository apparently, and that's good enough for them. Slackware,
No.
most of the actual Patrick. I forgot his last name, but the guy that does Slackware does very little infrastructure around Slackware. That's just most of it is community members that just run this thing. Like there's slackbuilds.org. That's not run by him at all, and that's basically like the AUR for Slackware. It's just a bunch of random shell scripts that you can download and install stuff that does not come in the Slackware package sets.
Well, that's cool that the community is doing that, though.
Yeah.
So I see we have a
It's just a different philosophy. It's a different way of thinking about it than a lot of
sure.
distros.
It's a little more Wild West, which I guess old Linux, right?
Yeah.
So Prophetic, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. I missed you guys, and it's great that you're doing this. And I just wanted to say hi and check in with you guys. You're doing really good.
Well, you're a little bit on the quiet side, but it's good to hear your voice, albeit a little quiet. And I missed the Biddle faces, so I felt like I had to do something, just to fill in for until it can come back. So it's a Cubicle
I
chat,
think this was
a low rent
great
Biddle.
idea. Thank you.
Yeah.
Agreed. And I think it's a great tribute to Biddle too, because it's definitely missed, and it's cool that you throw in the name in there too.
Low rent
tribute.
Biddle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
it's cool.
Well, see, I don't have the cool graphics of the of things spinning around and the
intense music intro.
intense music and
Yeah,
music.
it's
Yeah.
like, oh, is this football on Fox or something, right?
Yeah. No, this is more like I stumbled into the water cooler, carrying my laptop. That's more like what this is like. So
Oh no, your poor laptop.
yeah, it fell on the ground. Now it's got a little ding in the corner, and I gotta take it to the service guy and get, have him do some like soldering and some bodge wires in the motherboard now because the power jack doesn't work anymore. Not like this ever happened to me or anything like that, but just saying.
Oh.
Or you could just, make an excuse to buy a new computer now.
Yeah, there you go.
What? Buy new? What?
He knows.
Yeah,
What
I
is
know.
this?
Yeah,
That's
now you have a good excuse.
concept.
Or new to you. How's that?
That too, yeah.
Yeah.
Or, and I'm sure Nate would probably do this, drag your Commodore 64 everywhere with you. Just
I
do
could.
that.
It is right there.
Do you still actually use that thing?
Well, yeah, man. Why wouldn't I? I do have to admit, though, I did get a Commodore 64 or the C64 Maxi. It's a new implementation of the Commodore 64. It's it's built on some sort of ARM-based something. And I actually end up using that one a little bit more often because it's easier just to pop in a USB drive and it has HDMI. But it essentially works the same. So it's
Nice.
yeah. Oh, I see that is it Popple Penguin? He asked what happened to Biddle. Well, it's not here, so this is a low rent Biddle. We are, it's without the quality and the professionalism because it's me. So there you go. It's kind of stepping in for a while because I truly did miss everybody. My friends, as I call you.
I picked up that term from you. Yeah, that's right. I
Yeah.
use that all the time now. And I'm like, oh yeah, it was Nate's idea.
So I used to bartend in a winery. We have a lot of wineries around where I live. This is years ago. And you always have somebody like it was like a bachelorette party or something, and you have like one or two, or one is usually like with their phone like behind, and they're on like instead of paying attention to the wine tasting, they're like doing something on their phone, and that's how I would tap and kind of loudly say, tap on the, on the table and say, excuse me, are your friends more important than your real friends? I think you need to, come back to the crowd here, and I do stuff like that. I pick on it. Everyone laughs, and then they're embarrassed a little bit, and then they try and get involved. It's mess with people. It's fun in a nice way, in a fun, plucky sort of, way. So it's good times. So Adam, what's new with you? Any new games? Stadia, doing some Stadia.
Sure. No. I bought one of those fancy new Xboxes, so I play that mostly. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're a little on the quiet side, but I hear you. So you got a fancy new Xbox. I didn't know there was a new Xbox, or you just bought a new Xbox.
There is a new Xbox in that like new models exist.
Are they like? How were
I
they?
just managed to get one, Adam. Like I just got it in like the other day.
They're
Like
pretty
for, like-
awesome.
Playing Minecraft? What do you do? What else do you do on an Xbox? Minecraft and Halo is all I know about.
Yeah, that's about all you need.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it covers the basics.
No, there's a ton of games on there. It's hang on, I'm trying to adjust my microphone. And anybody else hate Windows? Because I sure do.
Sure. I have to support people all day that do stuff.
Like, why do I have to go like so many dialogue boxes deep just to get to my microphone?
I have to use it at work, and I hate it so much.
Oh, and of course, all right, whatever.
Oh no!
Look
yeah,
at
that's
that
an old
monitor. Is that like an
model.
amber
It's
screen?
ancient. Yeah.
This
Is
is
it-
Amdex Video
Yeah.
300.
Is it amber
Whoa.
or green? What color is the
I'm not sure yet. I
phosphorus?
didn't turn it on yet, but I have a hunch it's like a green.
Yeah,
Because they also had the amber screens.
Yeah.
That
I-
company.
I'd love to get myself an old monochrome screen just because, like,
Yeah,
not for
I
any
haven't
real
had-
practical reason.
I haven't had a chance to
Is this any
boot
better?
this thing up, but
Yes.
it's IBM something or other.
Yes,
I
I bought
think-
this dynamic mic a while back, and I forget that I have to like be right up on it to get it to do anything.
Well, it's a little bit louder than it was before, and it sounds better too. You sound
Yeah,
like you're in
because
the.
I'm closer.
Okay.
I'm closer to it.
All right.
I know mine
Cool.
was a little low. How's my level?
Yeah, you're good now.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm looking to see that you bounce into the yellow on my little audio meter. So when you talk, then I know you're good.
Okay.
So
But yeah, other than that, I got my second dose of my Bill Gates nano machine vaccine today.
oh yeah,
So
did you grow any other limbs or another ear or
no,
anything cool?
I bought 10 copies of Windows, hence my problems just currently.
Wow.
Nah, but yeah, so I'm working through that right now. That's fun. But
Well, that's fun.
yeah,
So
I
not
hear
not
the
a,
second dose hits you harder than the first. I just had my first a couple days ago.
yeah,
I
haven't really
I
felt
got
too bad.
yeah, I wasn't too. I had the same reaction with the second dose as they did with the first. The day after the shot, I could not lift my arm, and was so tired I slept all day. That was after sleeping the whole night before. I had enough energy to get up, take the dog out, and then I went back to sleep. So that was how I reacted to both doses.
Yeah, I haven't been very tired. I
Wow.
just have a lot of muscle aches. That's about it.
Well, that's what happens when you have a lot of muscles.
That's true.
So
And the thing is, like when you lift weights, your muscles get sore too. So it must be doing something right.
yeah.
As if I would know.
So
Well-
anybody working on some crazy projects recently they're excited about, or just trying to get through the season?
I'm working on renovating my garage so it's not a stupid shack with a hole in the roof. So that's exciting.
Are you doing like what's your angle? Is it like tech garage man cave, or is it just more purely functional for house projects?
It's more purely functional for house projects. So right now it will actually not fit my truck. I could not put my truck inside the garage. It's too short. So I'm making it 4 feet longer, 4 feet wider, and 4 feet taller, so I can have storage above, and so forth. I had to go. The garage is non-compliance with the city ordinances, so I had to go through this process to get it approved. So it was like a 6-month process for the whole, like from the time I submitted my
Man.
application, and yeah, it was kind of a pain in the butt. So I built the plans, like I accounted for every piece of lumber in it and everything as far as the whole bill of material and everything for it. So and so the city liked the plan. I just had to get it voted on. So it was an extra $500 I had to spend just to get permission to build it, or just to ask for permission. I had to spend another $500. I did get $104 back or something like that. I don't know why. Maybe good behavior. And
Wow.
yeah.
And
But
now
anyway,
that they gave you permission, the price for all those building materials has gone up, what, 4 times the amount?
it depends. So some of them yes, some of them no. But the treated lumber, yes, but not all the treated lumber. So I'm using 6x6s. I'm gonna do post frame construction on it, and pouring basically concrete columns underneath it. So it's not gonna go anywhere for as long as I live. That's for sure.
Wow, that is nuts. I did not realize. I knew it could be bureaucratic when you're trying to do additions, but that is pretty.
Well, that's how they get
sad
their
and
extra money.
intense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm surprised they didn't like make you go through an engineering company to officially make this the plans, because I've heard that sometimes where you can't submit it on your own. You have to go through approved.
The building inspector is also a builder, so he actually can approve residential
Oh, there you go.
construction. So
Yeah.
if it's commercial construction, then yes, you do have to go through an architectural. But I live in a small town,
Ah,
like I'd say a 1-horse town, but it's like maybe like a 3/4 horse town. It's not really
right.
it's not a big. 2,500 people live in my city. If that is any, that helps. So anyway, yeah, they it was kind of funny. They sent like the package of like via email because it had to be remote. So they had this. I got a call. Are you comfortable with this application called Zoom? And they started explaining to me how to use and everything. And I go, no,
heard of it.
no, tell me.
Walk me through. Teach me.
Yeah, I like to. Yeah. Anyway, but it was all right. The
That's cool, man.
the process was fine. So now it's just a matter of I got to get off my duff and actually complete it. So
That's cool.
dig some holes. I have to keep 2 of the walls because it's non-conforming. I could knock it down and put a new one up there. I have to modify the existing. So it's a 100-year-old shack that I got to turn into a decent garage with a nice workbench and everything else.
Cool.
Open source.
Yeah, I wish I had the money to redo our garage. Mainly the door, because the door we have is like this old wooden door, and man, it's had better days. And
It's like a
we
hobbit
basically
door,
just
or
no, it's just I wish that would probably still work. But like our current garage door is like kind of falling apart. The wood's kind of not rotted, so to speak, but just like worn out. The thing's kind of warped and stuff over time, and we just don't even open the garage door anymore because we don't know that we'd be able to shut it again. So we just leave it closed.
So the expense of a garage door is not really the garage door; it's the labor. Because if you have
I believe it, yeah, because those springs look pretty dangerous, and
the springs that are like that go along the I think coaxial to the motion of travel, those not so bad. The ones that spin that wind above the door that are much
Yeah.
more hidden, those will kill you. So,
yeah, not something I'm gonna put on my handyman gloves and take on. So
yeah. I wonder if anyone here has this thing where it's like this parallel between like being techie but also handy. That's something that I'm way more techie than I am handy. I'm not that great with the handyman stuff. I do the basics and essentials maybe, but
I'm right there with you.
yeah.
I love hand tools. I have lots of DeWalt cordless 20-volt max things. I got a framing nailer. I was doing some work at a equestrian farm, a horse. Yeah, it careful with that one. That one will actually kill you too if you're not, if you're done with it. But it's an amazing piece of technology. I wanted to take it apart just to see how it's put together. So it kind of uses this like flywheel thing, and it's like it spins it up. Then when you initiate the firing basically of the nail, it sends a hammer basically, to slam into it. It's amazing what they're able to do. You can do like 700 nails on a battery charge.
Wow.
Yeah.
man, so you don't even need like an air compressor or
Nope.
anything like that.
Mm-mm.
Wow, that is pretty sweet.
Now I want to get a finish nailer because I have I do have to make an admission here. I am going to be installing windows here for me. 7 of them on my house. Yeah. So
Oh, I see.
He's here all night, folks.
no, just for
Yeah.
another 18 minutes.
The ones that you can actually look through.
Right. Ones that
Mhm.
that when they crash, it's a little more catastrophic.
Yeah. You can actually open it though. The open
It's
things,
true.
That's good.
They actually work.
It's true. So I've installed the north and west sides of my house. I'm gonna do the south now, and then east is done also. But so just the last 7 windows, and then little bit by bit, I'm turning my 100-year-old house into something a little more livable. So
That's cool.
You're installing Windows 7.
yes. How did I miss that one?
Yeah.
Well played,
How
Bash.
did we all miss that one?
That's a solid one.
You doing side jobs, Nate? Could I hire you to do the same for my house?
Yeah, we gotta get a camera crew to follow you around and make a TV show out of your handyman stuff.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a I'm not fast with it. It takes me a while per window to do, but I scrape them down and I'm painting them before I put the windows up because the 100-year-old wood is still actually fine. I mean, it's amazing.
That is amazing.
It's not pressure treated or anything like that. It's just fine. I mean, there's some that's like a little dried out, but nothing literally just like painting and sanding it, and pretty much it takes care of the any of the ridges and so forth. So then I'm sealing it. I wouldn't say I'm good at it. Like I don't want to sell myself as being good at it. I would say I'm a hack like everything else I do. Kind of just barely make it. I like doing electrical. Electrical is a lot more fun because it's if you mess up real quick.
Yeah.
Your hair starts going up.
Actually, in some cases, it won't matter if you know it by that point.
Yeah.
Well, if it's 110, it's not a big deal. It's the 220 that won't let you go.
So when I was a kid, my dad, I would throw socks into the laundry basket in the laundry room, and keep in mind I never played basketball, and there's a reason for that. And so my dad got mad at me after a while and was like, "You're gonna go back behind that dryer and get every one of those socks." I'm like, "Okay." So me being the clever one that I am, I grabbed a wire clothes hanger and like bent it into a hook thing that I could fish it out, fish all the socks out
Wow.
of. The clothes hanger kind of made contact with the 220 there, and I was like 10. I was like, yeah, like I couldn't let go, and like eventually, like I don't know how I managed to let go, but I did. And like I was like stunned for at least like 3 hours, like just
Wow,
I was
3
in a
hours.
bad
Because I always wonder, like, how does that?
yeah,
How do you?
I was in a bad way for at least 3 hours, and my dad's just laughing his ass off, laughing his butt off, just losing it. And I'm like, man, I'll never do that again. And every so
So-
often, my dad will be like, my dad, even I'm in my 30s now. My dad will remind you remember when we were supposed to get the socks out, and just like, yeah, I do.
Giving him hangers to get stuff with. Like, you want to reach that for me?
Or like anytime we do anything electrical, like around the house or whatever, he would be like, oh, I don't think we need a clothes hanger for this one. I'm just like, yeah, I get it, Dad. Like,
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I don't think we need a clothes hanger for this one.
Yeah.
That's
Man,
hilarious.
I'm telling you, that was scary, man. I got zapped hard. And I was like
So-
10 or 11, man. It was, so I'm also like, I've climbed onto the dryer to fish out. So like I'm just on this metal box with a metal clothes
Conducting
hanger.
all
and, like,
that.
yeah, just it was a
Nice.
mistake all around. But it was.
If
that was
only would have had
good,
your feet in a puddle of water too while doing it. That'd have been great.
May
Even-
as well
even-
have, man. May as well have. And it should have been like a lightning storm at the time. And yeah,
That's hilarious.
yeah.
I remember.
So,
yeah. So I actually had this. I call it the dinosaur laptop because the thing was a good 3 inches thick, and it had a floppy drive. And my grandfather had given it to me, and the thing refused to boot, so I decided to take it apart. And after I got done taking it apart, I had the power supply on the power cable left. I'm like, oh hey, let's take this apart too. And me and my infinite wisdom plugged it into the wall while I was opening it up. So you can already see where this is going. And inside, there were 2 metal plates, one on each side of the internal brick. And I'd done something and had like gotten sparks off of these things and like knew there was power going through them and that I shouldn't touch them. And I touched both of them at the same time with my hands when I was like trying to move it.
At least you didn't like grab one with either hand.
This is true. It was just going through my hand. But next thing I knew, I was like on my back on the ground, and like the back of my head was sore where I'd like threw my head back against my dresser was right behind me, and I slammed my head back against it. And like I blacked out for a solid like 5 seconds.
What?
No idea.
That's the
But,
thing they teach you for like first aid for lightning strikes is look for broken bones because people do all sorts of with their body when they get yeah.
Yeah. It was rough, and it taught me the hard way. Don't play with high voltage electricity. Never again.
My little nephew was really bad about like when he would plug things in, especially around Christmas time when he was really young. Like he would hold it by like the metal prongs as he's putting it in, because he has small hands. And every like few, like I want to say like every 2 months, you see him plug something in. Yeah, like just it's like you did it again, didn't you?
That is
plug it
funny.
in.
There was another time. So keep in mind, I was like kindergarten, okay? So I didn't have a concept of how any of this stuff worked. I had a tennis racket that I was running to run electricity through because I was stupid. It's kindergarten, you know? So I was trying to figure out how to do that. So I stuck paper clips in either end of the wall socket. And thankfully, I didn't electrocute myself. Instead, I shorted the wall socket so it never worked again. And enough sparks fell down that I literally set the carpet on fire.
Wow.
And like I'm in like kindergarten, and I'm like, oh crap, I can't let my mom know. So I like figure out how to put the fire out myself. And literally, like my mom doesn't know about this for like 3 years.
Does she know now?
Until Yes, she does. She came up to my room. She came up to my room to do something, and she's like, "Why are there burn marks here on the carpet?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, you didn't know about time. I almost burned the house down."
I took up smoking.
That wouldn't have made sense, but yeah, sure.
When I had rental
I was-
property, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
So when I had rental property, I was doing a lot of like, between. I would upgrade the rental properties as I had new people move in, so I change out like switches and outlets and such. But I wouldn't shut off the power to do that because I understand you have to make a circuit in order for electricity to for the angry pixies to travel. Basically, you got to make a complete circuit, right? So I would change a lot of them without doing anything. I just unscrew it. I'd actually use a power drill to do it. So there's some insulation there too. So I'd unscrew it, whatever. Well, one time, I arced it across the chuck and whatever, and that gave me a bit of a fright. And ever since then, I haven't done that live anymore because the wires sometimes just like to kind of go whoop on you, and bad things
It
happen.
only takes once.
Yeah, but it's really impressive though. The kind of like the little light show that it gives off when that happens.
Yeah,
And it doesn't always
It's a
trip the
very
breaker
pretty light
either.
show.
Nope. But I did smoke this component. It's a boost converter. I don't know if you can kind of see what that looks like. So I reading the spec sheet. Maybe it was bad. I bought a lot of them, but I want to take the power from this battery here because it's 18.5 nominal volts, and I want to boost it up to 20 volts on this side, like an actual 20 volts, so I can convert it into a USB-C power source, so I can power my things off of this at 20 volts, the higher standard.
So I actually did something similar to that. So my
Blew it up.
grandfather gave me a backup battery that goes in a security system, and it's capable of putting out 16 volts, but it averages around 12. And I did some research, and apparently, the cigarette lighters in cars also puts out about 10 to 12 volts. So, I took a flashlight, cut a couple slits in it, and put some bolts through it where the slits are, and then wired the bolts to the leads on a car charger. And the battery is not like an A or D battery. It's got these two little hook prong type things, so I can just take the flashlight, hook the prongs into the little slits I cut, and it makes contact with the bolts, and then sends power to that car charger, and I can charge my phone from that. And I have a solar panel to recharge the that big battery from.
Nice.
So I can literally take this while I'm camping, and I'm good all day long.
I feel like this show should be sponsored by some like outdoors or handyman company with all the stories.
I was
And
thinking
the
like
best part is,
I was thinking an insurance company.
Or that, yeah. I just made a comment in chat to on YouTube. Barb just sitting back like, I don't have any of these stories to share. I had some
Oh, I
content.
do.
Well,
When
you're
I
a
was
chemistry
in graduate
teacher.
school-
Aren't you a
I
chemistry
didn't do
teacher?
it. This was the fun thing. When I was in graduate school in chemistry,
She did it.
on Friday afternoons, we would go over to the physics department to watch the graduate students in the physics department discharge 50,000 volt capacitors
Wow.
by touching them.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy. And they lived.
Good for
they
them.
Got knocked across the room, and we would just sit there and watch them like, these are idiots. And they thought we were crazy.
So like after it happened,
Because, we just inhaled all those fumes, but they were electrocuting themselves.
So after it happened,
On a
like,
daily basis.
was there like steam coming out of their mouths and they're saying, "Let's do it again"?
It would just be like, I mean, it was crazy. They would just, and we didn't understand why they did it,
So
except to
you
watch
were
them.
you were smart enough to witness the acts.
I am absolutely petrified of what I call big electricity. Regular electricity. If, millivolts and microvolts and milliamps, those things don't bother me. Stuff that's in my computer doesn't faze me. But yeah, I wouldn't want to touch.
That's funny.
Oh
Yeah, I
yeah,
think
so but except I did other things
anything higher than about
like
24, maybe 50 volts. I think that's when I start getting a little bit.
yeah, but these are ones that they use to power all sorts of weird equipment
Yeah,
Yeah.
that they were building.
things
I
in
mean,
higher ed.
it was a research lab, so yeah,
Yeah,
they were just crazy.
yeah, they've tightened it up a lot in higher ed with labs and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
I mean, this was in the 1970s, so you're
yeah,
not. They don't do that now.
you can't have fun
We used to.
anymore.
No, you can. I mean, I had a lab partner, even though we had the same advisor, but we weren't working on the same project, but we're in the same physical lab room, and it was on the 8th floor of the science tower, where chemistry and physics was. So we would. He was working with. He had to use lithium metal, and oh yeah, because he was
That
using this
sounds cool.
as a catalyst for reaction. And I wasn't
This is
doing. I was
already
doing
coming
something
back.
else. But he would take when it was snowing or raining. He would take off, wipe it off, pull up a little bit of it out of the mineral oil, wipe it off, and he'd wear gloves, just like the latex gloves, and throw it out the window, just tiny little pieces, out the 8th floor because our lab was right over the main entrance, and we would have fun watching the pre-mids scatter.
This is amazing. I love it.
Yeah, see, you don't think that there's a whole part of me people don't realize. And so we would sit there and take tiny little pieces and chuck them. And only when it was snowing or raining. And then of course like a snowflake hits it and it flames up. And so you got these kids going, "Oh my god, it's raining fire." And we did this and we ended up one day doing it. It was in the spring. And one of the professors caught us.
Oh.
And he just kind of looked at, he saw what was happening. And he just stood down there and shook his head at us. We didn't get in trouble as long as we didn't do it again. But this was the 1970s. You could do stuff like that.
Yeah, I think in the 70s though they pretty much they passed out like a vial of mercury, a clump of lead, and apparently lithium, and you could just go out and have as much fun as you wanted.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to show there was like even in biology when they would talk about what is life, what's alive, and what's not, they would actually have 2 petri dishes. One of them would actually have liquid mercury in it. And is it alive? Well, it can move on its own.
Wow.
That kind of thing. When you're trying to go through the properties of life. But yeah, no, we could do a lot more then. The other thing we would do, I didn't do it.
Yeah, well, we got Raspberry Pis now, so
Yeah,
those are
it's
cool.
the same idea. They're cool. But no, the other kid, what he would do, the other guy who I shared my lab with, he would take, because we were working with fungi and extracting out metabolites, so we would have growth medium, liquid growth medium, or stuff with agar in it. And if you always had stuff left over, you couldn't flush it down the drain because it would stop up the drain. So he would fill a latex rubber glove and tie it up and then just wait for it to harden. And he would do this in the summer and then take it and chuck it out the window. And instantly, in like 2 minutes, the hole was all covered with black ants.
What is growth
You
medium?
see ants swarm from all over, from the sugar that was in the growth medium.
Okay, so what is actually what is in growth medium? Like, what does it
Oh, that means it's
consist of?
got the proper minerals and dextrose to grow fungi.
Oh yeah.
That's all it is.
That's all it is, Nate.
That's all it is.
Oh, okay.
And
So-
then in
So pretty much
agar,
anything
so
I
you
leave in
put
my
it down
fridge
in
too
the
long
petri
is
dish,
growth
and
medium.
it would have like a gel type medium. It wouldn't.
Yeah.
It would not be liquid. It would be this gel. It would be like Jello.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's a little
Yeah, that's what
frightening.
it was, but-
Growth medium. Just
Well-
calling it that just sounds frightening.
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
glad
well,
you
no, well,
survived.
that's what they called it. And
glad
yeah,
you
so
survived it.
I did things like that, or I was witness to it, or I suggested it,
See, she was a smart
and
one.
he
It
was dumb enough to go do it.
Yeah. And then she witnessed it, got some popcorn, and just enjoyed the show.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
So
funny.
basically, if you get an idea from Barb, you might want to think twice. She might be walking you into a trap or something, and yeah,
I feel like
just be
I feel like
But
careful.
you're
I
trying.
was like this from the time I was little. When I was in first grade, there was a girl. Her name was Betsy Ross. I'm not kidding. And she had these cute little blonde ringlets, and she was like real prissy and always wore lacy stuff.
That's
So,
so
and I
incredible.
was like, a tomboy. And I was probably in the summers, I was like the dirtiest kid on the block at the end of the day. But anyway, I would go out when we'd have recess and go outside, and I would find like bugs and spiders and worms, and I would put them like in her lunch or in her desk and get away with it because who would ever think this cute little kid 6-year-old with long braids does all her work and she's always so polite. There's this one boy who got blamed for it every time, and I never said anything,
No, of course
but
not.
it was
Because
me.
you're
I
smart.
was very proud of it. Yeah,
So, do you owe Betsy an
'cause I couldn't
apology now?
stand her. Huh?
Have you?
I
Did
could not
you?
stand her. She was just like, just one of those, like, super blonde curly hair, and and I'm just so perfect. Yeah, you're gonna
Yeah.
get
But
the worm.
notice, so you were always like you say you were a tomboy growing up,
Hmm.
and look,
I had a real leather holster, so when I played with the other kids on the block and played Cowboys and Indians, which people probably don't do anymore because it's not politically correct. Um, uh, and I was the only girl on the block, and the boys would let me play with them because I had a real hand-tooled leather holster.
sweet.
Yeah.
That's
Notice,
awesome.
is Barb the only female in the group right now?
Hmm.
Yeah.
I was the only female in the group for a long time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's interesting how that follows along.
Yep.
It's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't do some of the things you guys did with electrocuting yourselves. I did other things.
Yeah, she did.
She blew people up instead.
Traps.
Yeah, why not?
She was a
Throwing,
wizard.
throwing
But you
stuff
made
out the
fire
window
rain
and
from the
watching
skies.
people.
Yeah,
And-
she was a wizard.
An
The
alchemist.
stuff I've done, everything from electrocuting myself to accidentally creating chlorine gas.
Ooh.
Did you mix ammonia and Clorox?
Maybe.
That's a dangerous.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it caused it.
Oops.
And I did that because I ran out, I think, of one or the other. And they're like, oh, hey, this is bleeding really well. Wait, I can't breathe. Let's
Yeah,
get
you're
out of
lucky
here.
because chlorine gas is deadly.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah,
burns the
I did
insides of your lungs and everything.
I did that a number of times. I think there's something
That explains it.
with the tub because, like, I get a similar reaction when I, like, spray my tub with chlorine. I have no idea why. Like,
Well, you're
It
getting
doesn't.
the chlor because it's a solution. It's sodium hypochlorite, and it does start to eventually break down a little bit, and you get chlorine gas coming off.
fair.
That's why it smells. What you're smelling is the chlorine when it's dissolved in water.
And a tongue and feeling.
Chlorine's some scary stuff, bro. Like,
All of those
Yeah.
halogens are very. Iodine's just as scary.
there was something I heard about. I think it's a chlorine fire. That stuff. Like, oh, yeah, yeah. So
I think that's a
apparently, chlorine is a more powerful oxidizer than oxygen itself. So
Yes, because it's on the because it's group 7.
yeah. So basically,
And-
you can
yeah.
take things that you wouldn't normally think of as flammable. So like steel or
Highly
aluminum.
exothermic.
Yes. Or things that have already been burned and make fire out of it. Like very powerful fire.
Oh yeah, and you can take like hydrofluoric acid, which has got hydrogen and fluorine, and it's in water. You can't put it in glass. It'll eat
Yeah.
right through the glass. You can only put it in those Nalgene plastic containers.
Wow.
Speaking of
Yeah.
glass, there's this like TikTok video. My wife has TikTok. I don't know how I allow it in her house, but TikTok app, and she watches was one video where I forget how we got to it, but it was putting a piece of paper towel on a windshield and putting, what's that? Red Bull. Red Bull over the windshield with that piece of paper towel, just a one layer, and a couple seconds, the whole windshield will crack. It's some weird. I don't know if it's a hoax or if it's some weird random chemical reaction, and that paper towel is some type of like I don't know what kind of layer or what it does.
Well, the paper towel is probably it's usually bleached paper, and if it's paper towels, it's not. They really don't worry about making sure that they get all the reagents out of it.
So
And
there's
so
some
there
type
may
of
still be
chemical
a little bit
reaction,
of chlorine in it. Yeah.
and then boom, the whole windshield cracks. So it's just nuts how like the stuff like we drink. Well, I don't really drink Red Bull anymore, but man, just one chemical away from like causing so much damage.
So what you're saying is,
There's a lot of stuff that way.
don't eat paper towel and take a swig of Red Bull. I think that's
Basically.
yeah,
There you go.
that's the moral of the story right there.
Man,
I mean,
the
I've
safety
looked at people
lessons.
who nuke their food in the microwave and they cover it with a paper towel.
Oh,
They're not for food. Those
I
paper towels are
sometimes
not
do
for
that.
food. Huh? It's not
I
a good
sometimes
thing to
do this because I don't want to make a mess, so I gotta use something else then.
Well,
Wow.
turn a plate upside down on top of it, or use
Yep.
some plastic wrap, or
So-
wax paper. Do not
Nice.
use aluminum foil.
Oh, definitely no, never.
But that's
Sleepy
exciting.
Eye
Never.
said-
Sparks.
Sleepy Eye said low
Low
red
red
science.
Low red science
Accurate.
class. Pretty much.
Accurate.
That's
See, that's
There we
because
go.
my undergraduate degree was chemistry.
That's awesome. You remember so much. I could barely remember
Oh,
that
yeah.
one, like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that was my undergraduate degree. So you learn all sorts of stuff, and a lot of those things, after 9/11, they stopped teaching a lot of that stuff. I mean, we
believe it.
used to learn about making incendiary compounds and stuff because it's a part of organic chemistry. They
Yeah.
don't do that. They don't teach that part in class anymore.
Yeah.
But if
After
you know where to go,
9/11
you can
they stopped.
still do the research and figure it out.
And
Well, it's all on the internet.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
get an
I-
old chemistry book.
Like
There-
I did a presentation in 8th grade on the nuclear bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Mm-hmm.
And because I did the research on like how these things were invented, I ended up learning how to make one.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like-
and that information.
Yeah.
There are textbooks on it. If you get
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
but,
you
like,
look up
knowing-
things for nuclear
knowing how to-
physics and nuclear chemistry.
Knowing how to do it though is one thing. Actually having the materials and the skill set to do it is something completely different. I don't know how to weld, and I have no idea how to get hold of the specific isotope of
You
uranium.
can't. They're
in order to do it.
because they're controlled substances and they require
Right.
specialty permits
Right.
for you to
But-
get them, and you would.
But
Yeah.
plutonium, however, is actually fairly easy to get hold of. It's getting it in the quantities you need that's the problem.
You need them in
And you-
large enough
and-
quantities.
And then you can convert that into uranium if you so choose, just by using a smoke detector.
so
What
before
did I come back to?
before my channel gets flagged for some sort of like
Yeah.
crazy fringe.
Good.
Um,
Oh,
You
it
can
is-
blame me. It's okay.
it-
I
Good run,
started
well
this
done.
whole thing.
So-
Oh yeah, I want to just kind of put a bow on this, and because it is past time, so I want to go around the horn one last time. If anyone has anything they want to like to plug or whatever. So Thomas, I know you got Draugr OS. You probably got something to plug there, and it's like last word essentially.
Yes.
low rent last word.
Laurent, last
So,
word.
Am I going?
Yeah, Thomas. Yeah,
Right.
go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Nate, for doing this. I appreciate having Biddle back, even
Low
if
rent.
it is low budget. Yeah, but you know what? Biddle is Biddle. It doesn't matter if it's low budget or not. We're gonna have fun either way because it's not about how much you spend; it's about the people you spend it with.
All
Right
right, I love it.
Yeah. Other than that, yeah, check out Draugr OS. I've actually been working on a video coming out in May. There's a trailer coming out for it here next month sometime. So keep your eyes open for that because I'll share it. Yeah, long live Linux.
All right, thank you, Barbara.
Okay, first of all, I want to thank you, Nate, for kind of restarting, even if it is low rent biddle. I'm really missed it. And please, people, don't ask me how to make incendiary devices. How's that? Of course, it went out all on YouTube.
All educational
Okay.
purposes.
Yes,
Right.
educational purposes. I am a science teacher.
Can't help it.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bash.
Yeah, if you want to see what happens if you get plutonium, watch Back to the Future Part 1, beginning, please. That's what happens.
Right.
Just saying.
Just exchange a pinball machine full. A shoddy bomb casing full of pinball machine parts. It'll be fine.
Yes, it'll probably be fun. But no. Anyway, so yeah, that's it for me. I'll stop there. But we'll keep on Linuxing away and have something to talk about here maybe next week, depending on how the schedules work out.
Cool. Thank you. Steve, Mo West, you there still?
I'm still here. Thank you so much, Nate, for bringing the community back together again in the low rent middle. This has been a blast, 2 weeks in a row. Really appreciate it. I guess the one thing I would encourage to plug is those of you who have Raspberry Pis that are newer than my Raspberry Pis, because I got the Generation 1 ones, and that's a little too old. But if you have like a 3 or a 4, MX Flux box for the Raspberry Pi has come out, and would love
Cool.
people to bang on that and give it a whirl. MX Flux box has definitely kind of become one of my favorite projects in Linux, and love using it every day on my 86 machines. But if you want to try it out on a Pi, you can do so. Give it a whirl.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
MX Fluxbox is catching some steam. A little building a following.
It's an awesome project.
Fluxbox
It really is.
variant.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's one of the most active parts of the MX forum. I mean, there's usually new posts on there almost every day. It's a lot of fun.
Well, thank you. Daniel, last word, man.
It's really great getting to hang out with you guys for the first time in like forever, because I had just kind of not shown up to Biddle for a long time, and then it ended, so I could come back.
Hiatus.
But yeah, I'm glad that I was able to come this week, and assuming this is happening next week, I'll definitely come back.
The plan is next week, yes. So, thank you very much.
Loved your free BSD talk, Daniel. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, it was good.
Oh, I forgot to mention PF. PF is wonderful. It's way better than IP tables. It's one of the firewalls in there.
I'll take your word for it. Prophetic. Nice of you to drop by. Last word, man.
Oh, great for being here. So I miss you guys. I miss you all. It was so great to hang out. If I had to plug something, is there's a organization called Unohost, Unohost, and it's about having single-click installs on a home server that's really easy to manage. So it's trying to get users to own their own cloud in a box at home, and they do a lot of stuff for you that makes it easy to host and manage. So I've been helping them out with some small stuff here and there. So go check them out. They're a really cool project. And same thing with Freedom Box, similar concept, more security, privacy focused, but same concept, helping them out too. And it's been really cool. So check those projects out. And again, thanks for making this happen, Nate. That's really fun.
What about
You're most
double-click
welcome.
installs?
What? I think you have to share.
Double-click install.
We need more of that.
Oh, let's not go there now.
We'll fork it. I'll do a fork of the project just for that.
Just for that one feature. That'd be awesome. Well, thank you very much. Adam, so glad you stopped by.
Yeah, glad I could be here. Thanks for doing this. I was lonely, so I joined happily.
Oh, good.
I'm probably going to go get horizontal because I need to.
It's a good plan. It's good to do at least daily. At least I hear that. That's what I'm told anyway.
Sometimes vertically, but yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining. Thanks everyone in YouTube for being here. I want to also thank the OpenSUSE project for the usage of their Jitsi server, because they provided the server space for this. Then I'd like to also thank Rocco for starting Biddle, because without that I would not have done any of this. or gotten to meet all you people and actually gotten involved in so many other things. So I also want to thank everyone involved in the Linux project and open source tools for because we could have this conversation on those tools. You make technology fun and enjoyable, and Linux truly puts the personal back in a personal computer. So thank you very much. We'll see you.
Thank you.
Catch you later.
Bye.
Try Puppy Linux.
Puppy Linux. That's funny.
You put
I gotta bring it
I'll
back.
I'll pip jogger.
I gotta bring it back.